Hey, Gershom from dekoningtan here. Today I want to do something a little different. I am going to be exploring something called coproducer. There's a company called Output, and they've created an AI tool called coproducer. So I was actually made aware of this by Jonas Friedman, who does producing videos on YouTube as well. And this is available for a limited time. So if you're interested in doing something with this, do it now. It's in beta. It's quite fun to mess around with. And so this video is actually about how we're going to use this AI music tool to create instruments rather than have it pre-make the music for us. Now, if you're interested in a video that's all about the ethics of AI music production and if an AI makes the music, is it really still music or art? This is not what this video is about. I'm sure there's lots of other videos on YouTube that you can find about that. And if you're interested in using AI to basically generate a song for you from scratch where you're not doing that much work or editing, that's also not what this video is about. This video is about taking the samples from coproducer and using them as a kind of foundation sound to start creating new cool instruments and sounds in your own DAW. In my case, I'll be using Reason because that's the DAW that I use, but most DAWs have some sort of sampling instrument, or there are VSTs that you can use for this as well. All right, let's dig into it. coproducer. So we are here on the website of coproducer, and you can see they have a little introduction video where they talk about it, and then once you sign up, you can start creating samples. So here we are on the main pack generator thing. Output has a bunch of other instruments as well. This is something they're testing out. That's why it's free right now. So you can write a prompt of any kind. So it gives examples, an ethereal pad with a distant shimmery lead. So I'm going to write a Celtic folk tune at 90 BPM with romantic and mysterious vibes. Let's see if that prompt works, and we're going to generate 4 packs from that. Give it a little while to analyze the prompt. All right, here we go. Let's hear it. So this is pretty cool. I will say that that violin fiddle instrument sounds a little bit more like a Chinese erhu than a Celtic one, but I did like the drums, so that's pretty cool. Let's check out number 2. So similar erhu sounding instrument. That's what it says to me. Who knows? Maybe I could be wrong. I'm by no means an expert in Celtic instruments. So I would say pack 3 is probably my least favorite so far. I would say pack 3 and 4. I'm not going to download. I don't think they're right up my alley. I'm going to get pack number 1 for sure. I'm going to download that pack. It's going to assemble it for me. And what's cool about this is it's not just going to give me the little song it made. It's going to give me the stems, each instrument separated from that song. And that's where it becomes very interesting to use. I'm going to make a few more of these, and I'm just going to speed up the video as I do it so you guys don't have to watch the whole time. And we're going to take the total of those, and then we're going to dig into the actual stems of each file. Okay, so now that I've got these files ready, the next step is to kind of mess around with them. Remember that my goal here is not to use this as a sample in and of itself. I'm using the stems, and I'm going to use those stems to create a playable instrument. All right, let's get into it. All right, so here are a few of the different ones that I have. I have a calm exploration game prompt, then a Celtic folk tune, which you saw me do, and then muted strings exploration game, and then some Scandinavian and Viking-inspired pieces. So we're going to start with the Celtic folk tune. Here you have the sample pack, and we have the different instruments separated, which we can listen to. So, and it tells you, which is awesome, the BPM there at the bottom. You can see 90 BPM in F minor. And so that's really handy to know, because as we're composing, we might want to know that information. Okay, there's another harmonium. This is more the individual notes. Here we got. Okay, and then we got some horns. Swelling horns there. Now, I'm not sure what their samples are named after. Is it stuff from their own libraries, or is it from somewhere else? I'm not sure where they got their AI to, study the sound, if that makes sense. So just very quickly, AI stuff like this has to be trained. They call it training it on a model. So they usually will get a bunch of different kind of sources for the AI to study. And I don't know about the ethics of the sources that this AI has been trained on, but I will say that Output creates sampled instruments and virtual instruments themselves. So I would imagine they have access to a lot of samples which they paid people to play. So again, I don't know exactly the details, but that's just something to consider. And that's why I'm kind of okay using it. I don't feel like this is a situation where artist work is getting stolen from them and used. I would guess that because they're a sample company, that they've paid people to record different instruments. But I really don't know how their programming works. All right, let's get back into it. Okay, here we have a Asian groove taiko. And that was the drum. So it's labeled as a bodhran, but it's actually a taiko, apparently. I mean, there's a similarity. Here's the fiddle. Aha, I was right. It was an erhu. See? Interesting. So my ear was correct. It is using an erhu, or it's attempting to use an erhu in a Celtic folk tune. Interesting. This shows you that AI doesn't always get everything right. High squeals of a creature. Sounds like a dog. Okay, and then here's bells. All right, I'm most interested in first starting to get the drums set up. So, okay. Let's get these drums set up first. All right, so you can see here, I can just play this from Mimic, a creative sampler. And I could mess around with stuff if I wanted to, right? So that's one way I could go about it. But like I said, I'm less interested in the samples as like loops, and I'm more interested in using it as an instrument. So, though I do like this, and it's kind of cool, I think I'm going to go for something a little more where I can control it. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is we are going to get, let's get Kong Drum Designer. We're going to open the drum and effects, and we are going to change the sample. We're going to browse, here we are. Put that sample there. There we go. All right, let's shorten that sample for a second. There it is, edit sample. All right, so what we're going to select is a single hit. I like this hit at the end here. That's a really clear ending hit. Gives us a nice decay there. Alrighty, so now if we play that one back. Okay, good. We're going to save that one as single taiko hit and save that. Alright, so we got a single taiko hit. Then we're going to open another sample here. Let's take the same track, but this time we're going to edit that sample to a different hit. There's another one. And this way we have multiple hits to cycle through. So essentially we are creating round robins. We're using these generated samples. Single taiko hit 2. Okay, so that means by now it should, we set that to alternate layers. So we're using two different samples in this one drum set. Okay, and let's add a third. And by the way, the reason I'm using these ending hits is because it gives me more options in terms of like the samples won't feel like they're cutting. So they won't end abruptly, basically. Single taiko hit 3. Okay, let me just make sure I fade all these guys out so that we have a nice fade on every single one. And this one too. Oh, there we go, edit sample. Zoom in over there, and that one fades pretty well anyway. And this one's also an alt. So this means by now we should have... Cool. All right, I like this. Let's put on a little room reverb. There we go, that sounds pretty good. All right, so what we have now is we've got a nice drum, which we can actually play from the sample. So rather than just having to do and it's not that we can't do that, we can if we want. The song is at 90 BPM originally, so we're gonna do a 90 BPM song here, so we can use the sample if we want. But now we have options to make our own drum sound. I'm gonna remove the tape echo. I'm not quite happy with it. Compare it. Yeah, so we have a slightly more powerful drum, which we can use over here on our Kong kit, and that makes us have options for what we can do with this. So 2, 3, 4. And now at this point, I think it might be nice to get the rhythm in. So. Okay, so here we have this. It comes out of the... So now what I've done is I'm able to actually add more layers and dimension by using this drum as a sample as well. We're going to continue and do this for the other instruments and kind of build this track using just these coproducer generated instruments. Maybe at the end I will add a few instruments that I have already in the mix, but for now I want to see how far can I get using just these downloaded samples. So what I had to do is I had to go through and listen to all the different samples. Kind of like that. And then I had to decide which ones I wanted to use. And once I decided which ones I wanted to use, then I dragged them into Reason's NNXT, which is Reason's native sampler. And then I had to go and check the sample to kind of shorten it or keep the same, depending on what I wanted. To match what kind of way I was going to play the instrument. So here you can see I used the beginning note, and then the end I faded it out. And as you can see, I struggled with that a little bit. Once I had a fade, I felt like it was usable, and then I would try and actually mess around with it. So as you can see, this takes quite a while. So this process does take a while, and you have to bear that in mind as you go into it. Like, you are essentially creating a kind of mini sample library from these samples. And you have to, here I'm setting the start and end times of the loop, trying to get it to loop nicely. So all these little details that you have to go look into, and depending on your sampler, things might be easier or harder. NNXT I'm quite familiar with, so it's quite easy for me to figure out how to get it to work in a way I want. And there are some samplers that are harder to work with or a little bit less user-friendly. Once I was happy with how I'd done the sample, I obviously have to tell NNXT what the root note is. This is where that file name comes really in handy. So I knew that a lot of these samples were in D sharp, and so I could use that. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you'll get a sample where it's in the key of D sharp minor, but not all the notes are those actual pitches. But many times it does start on a specific root note, and you can actually just use that note when you're setting it of where it starts and ends. So now I'm going to actually speed everything up, and you're going to see me kind of work very, very fast, probably times 1,000 in terms of speed. And then at the end, I'm going to show you guys the track that I made with this. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm recording, and then every so often I add an instrument, And again, here I'm testing out which sounds do I like, which ones are usable. Sometimes I make one and I can't use it, so I go back and I change to a different one. And that happened multiple times throughout the process. It really depends. It's a fun thing. I find it very fun. And I think it's quite fun as a music maker to spend time to mess around with these kind of things. But it does take time. Like, making music yourself without an AI doing all of it for you, it takes a lot of time, and that's normal, I think. So I'm about to show you guys the final result of this experiment. It's something that I think I might do again from time to time. I think in my situation where I already have a lot of instruments, both free and paid for, that I can use, there might be less reason for me to use this on a frequent basis. Whereas if you're a musician who's just starting out and a lot of the stuff you have is just less in number and you have less options, I think this might be something you do more. Or if you're really into messing around with AI just for fun, this is something you might be really interested to do. The main takeaway I have from this is that if I ever am searching for a specific sound or vibe, coproducer could really help to kind of give me a starting point and maybe even instrument ideas for what it could sound like. Or if I'm looking for a very specific sound, I could try some prompts and see if the AI figures out what I'm trying to go for. That being said, sound design in itself and taking the time to experiment with a synth or going through your sound libraries and messing around with sounds yourself with effects, it's also really fun. So in a way, I'm really viewing this as just another tool in the tool belt, rather than like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. So view it as just another tool. I'm going to show you guys now how many instruments I ended up using that were purely from the AI generated sound pack. So how many sampled instruments I made from the AI, and I also mixed in a few ones that were already in my DAW. Okay, here we go. We have over here, I have used, of course, the drum, which I showed you, which is our taiko from the sample pack. I do at one point use one from Reason that was already in there. It can make drums, Kong can make drums very well. And let's see if there's any other. No, not really. I mainly use this drum, the single hit taiko. And then over here we have, of course, Mimic, which is using the entire sample. And so I didn't really change much about the sample at all. And I even played it in the original pitch. So it was playing at the 90 BPM, because what Mimic does is it will slow things down or speed things up depending on which note you're playing. So we have that one. Then we have low brass over here that I'm using. And I use two different notes from that. I added a little bit of plate to that to give it a little bit wider and more reverby of a sound. I felt it was a little too dry for my taste. Over here I used the low tension strings. For this, I added Isotope's vocal doubler, which I think is still free. At least I got it for free. And I used Wider, which is also free. So if you're looking for two great plugins, VSTs that are free, there you go. There's two great free ones. And they really fattened out the sound, because I want it to be all around. Then over here, you can see I have steel tones. Steel tones sounds like this. It is a free part of Reason. They partnered with Sound Iron to provide some samples, and it comes with Reason for free. So for me, it's for free. If you want a steel drum, though, there are great steel drums on Piano Book as well. And over here is a dual arpeggiator. It's also comes with Reason. And again, arpeggiators also exist for free if you want to get those. And then over here we have the mournful strings, I called it. They were called heartstrings originally. So that one I used much more of the sample. As you can see, I kept the na-na because I thought it sounded so great on its own. And that one, I just did one sample of it because I use it prominently but sparingly, if that makes sense. Now, on top of that, I also used this Labs string double. So it doubles what the mournful strings do. And the reason I did that is to give it a little bit more presence in the mix. But again, this is Labs is free. You can get it for free. And this is using the Frozen Strings violin. Cool, I'm excited to show you guys. Oh, at the end, of course, I put everything through some reverb. I used, again, the free all film score reverb that is in Reason. If you are not using Reason and you're looking for a good reverb plugin, Analog Obsession has a great reverb plugin called Room, and that's free as well. And there's other free reverb plugins every so often. I would say go for one that you like the sound of. There are different types, and you just have to mess around and see what you like. So most of them are going through, actually no, all of them are going through film score sound to give it that big, echoey, roomy feel. I wanted very ambient, cinematic. The only paid-for plugin I used is Ozone 9, which is for mastering. I am not a great masterer, I will admit. You can do this with free plugins and like make a mastering chain yourself. I enjoy the music making part a lot. I don't enjoy the mastering that much, so that's why I use Ozone 9. However, again, if you were to go to Analog Obsession's Patreon, you can get a lot of free, great mastering plugins as well that can do what Ozone 9 does, but you'd have to put in those things yourself. Maybe at some point later I can do a video on free plugins, which are great, because there's a lot. Okay, so at the very end, I had my wife listen to the track with the image that I'd prepared for it, and she said, what about you add a little something extra? How about some bird noises or animal noises from this kind of mysterious island that you're going to? So I added that at the very end. So yeah, altogether, I'm going to show you guys what it sounds like. I'm going to hit play over here, but then I'm going to cut away to a little background video because I always think that looks nicer than just seeing the DAW. Here we go.